In this webinar, I'll show you how to build trust and deliver results both to your Small Business Development Center clients and to your organization. The 15-minute meeting mentality really was inspired by a couple of different places. The first was the 4 disciplines of execution. You'll see Brene Brown's name referenced a couple times in this presentation. So what I've done is I've pulled kind of all of my own best practices as well as pulled from other sources to put together this webinar for Small Business Development Center advisors, center directors, interns, folks that are client facing, but also have to deliver value to their organizations. This was an essential tool. The 4 disciplines of execution was an essential tool that I used to scale my consulting and advisory services during the early days of the pandemic. And you know what? My clients did not actually want to go back to a longer meeting format. I always gave everyone the option to schedule 30 or 60-minute, even in person, longer meetings. But I would always ask them to try out the 15-minute format for 2 to 3 sessions to see what they thought about it. And of the 300 to 400 unique clients that I served annually, fewer than 5 actually opted to go back to longer meetings. And to be honest with you, those longer meetings tended to yield fewer results than the 15-minute cadence that I set. So let me tell you a little bit about the Founders Program. We have been operating in the economic development space. The business is new, but I've been in this space for a long time. And so that's kind of where we're coming from. Our experience is grounded in economic development. So today we're going to talk specifically about first, where does trust come from and building that trust with your SBDC clients. Then we're going to talk about different types of meetings, kind of long form and short form. And then we'll go into kind of how to drive results before delivering them. And then we'll talk about putting all of these skills together. So why me? Why should you listen to me about this? I was a 2020 Alabama SBDC state star. Over the 6-ish years that I worked with the Alabama Small Business Development Center, I had over 6,000 counseling hours, serving over 1,600 unique clients. I helped create over 220 new businesses. And I've been working in the economic development space, specifically with entrepreneurial support organizations, for over 10 years. So let's first talk about building trust and what that is. Building trust is an accountability tool that you can use both in terms of record keeping as well as context gathering with your SBDC clients. Specifically, how you do that is through, and I recommend Brene Brown's trust building inventory. Or the Braving inventory. And so Braving stands for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. So what do these things look like in SBDC's practice? So first, boundaries, ask for what you need. And that's being explicit about the new business creation, verification, and Secretary of State or city business licenses. It is asking about loan progress and having that, knowing that you need those documents to demonstrate value to the SBDC organization, as well as this helps you track progress with your clients. These are the boundaries. Without those things, can you serve them? Absolutely. But is it going to bring value to them? No. And is it going to bring value to the SBDC organization? Also, no. Reliability. You show up to scheduled meetings, you provide high quality and accurate information. The other side of that reliability is accountability. You will miss meetings, you will make mistakes, you will give incorrect information at some point. If you're in the game long enough, these things happen, right? That sometimes it is because a law changes and you no longer have up-to-date information and your templates are out of date. Sometimes you just get the wrong information, right, or miss meetings. So accountability is that you correct your mistakes when you notice them and you apologize for the mistakes that you will make. Vault. Vault is easy. This is the information shared with you is confidential between you and that person. And that means not talking to a client about another client or another set of clients. It means not talking about about that client to other clients. So you vault, this is pretty standard confidentiality information with SBDCs. You don't talk about your client work with other clients in particular. Integrity is the next one in the braving inventory. You call the hard shots, especially when it comes to the entrepreneur's skills, cash flow, finance, industry trends, all of those pieces. As one of my favorite SBDC advisors claims, she tells people when their babies are ugly. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do this without empathy, and you certainly don't need to tell anybody that their actual babies are ugly, right? But you want to make sure that if somebody's cash flow is in a bad situation, that you help them realize that they are in a bad cash flow situation, and their personal integrity is separate from the worth of their business, right? So they are always going to be worth more than their business. And so calling those hard shots, getting in a routine of saying it like it is. Think about it as if you were going to tell a friend that they had toilet paper on their shoe when they came out of the bathroom, or maybe they've got, like something in their beard after eating a meal, like whatever it is, whatever your kind of awkward conversations that you tell people, like when they're, when they do have the toilet paper on their shoe. That's what you're doing with these business owners. And you need to make sure to consistently do that. And of course, the next one being non-judgment. So integrity and non-judgment go hand in hand. If you call the hard shots, but you call the hard shots with judgment, that's just being mean. So making sure that the businesses that you work with, understanding that the actual legal entities, they're going to come and go, right? And it's the success and failure of a business is not the same as the success or failure of a person, right? So helping the business owner acknowledge and accept that their self-worth is always going to be greater than the worth of their business is really important. And it's a skill that we as SBDC advisors need to adopt, as well as helping our customers adopt them as well. So helping the business owner separate their self-worth from the value or the economic value of their business, right? The person that you're working with is always going to be worth more. They are a friend, a partner, a community member, a parent. All of those elements make us that put us in a position where we can help the business owner understand that their business may be failing, but that doesn't mean they fail as a community member, right? And so when we pair integrity, being able to tell someone, hey, you've got some toilet paper on your shoe, or your cash flow really just isn't in good shape, we need to make sure to move a little bit more of that owner's compensation into the operating expenses of the business, because your business is going to live off of you otherwise, right? Those kinds of conversations um, need to go hand in hand with both the non-judgment as well as the final component of building trust, and that is generosity. Generosity is your client believing that your clients are doing the best they can with the tools that they currently have, right? And a lot of the skills that we work with our clients on require a significant amount of practice, which means that they're going to fail, right? Part of practicing is learning that resilience of getting back up when they fail, right? If you get it right the first time, you don't need to practice. Maybe you're shooting for a goal that's too low. So your clients are doing the best that they can with what they currently have. Approach their feelings, frustrations, and barriers with curiosity and empathy. These are the 7 elements of building trust just in general, but then specifically also how you build trust with your small business development center clients. Putting these things into practice in every meeting will allow you to accelerate the pace of your meetings and deliver and drive a lot more value both for your clients as well as the SBDC organization that you work with. So let's talk for a couple minutes about different types of meetings and what they're good for. So common types of meetings, and this is from Calendly. So thank you, Calendly. I'm a huge advocate of Calendly software. They allow me to both scale up and scale down my meetings, depending on my availability and the demands of the market. So highly recommend them. They have some good research on meetings since they host so many of them, right? So the first types of meetings are status updates, decision making, problem solving. And then we have team building, information sharing, and innovation. And we'll look at each of those types of meetings and dive into the short form types of meetings that are most useful in small business development center client meetings. So, long form type meetings are innovation. And a lot of times you might hear this or think of this as kind of the brainstorming session. You're throwing spaghetti at the ceiling to see what sticks. Maybe you have an ideation session. Ideation sessions can be done pretty quickly, but brainstorming together will generally take a little bit longer. Sitting with those ideas and questions takes some time. The next is team building, right? And I'm not saying trust building here, I'm saying team building. Having those shared experiences together by going through a hardship together, that's what builds teamwork, right? And you have to have all those elements of building trust in place and work on continuing to build them. But team building, especially with larger teams, does take a longer amount of time. And the final long form type of meeting is problem solving or collaboration, when two people or more are working on the same project, going back and forth. That is an amazing process, but it does slow things down in terms of actually getting to a solution. And so, problem solving and collaboration type meetings, those are also long form meetings. Short form meetings are what we are going to be focusing on today, and those are status updates, info sharing, and decision making. So let's get into those three types of short form meetings that are most useful in keeping your clients on track as well as bringing value to your SBDC organization. First and foremost, status update type meetings. Status update type meetings, you can also think about these in terms of accountability. They, again, are really good for record keeping and context gathering. They are that pulse meeting that consistently happens on either a weekly or a monthly basis, where you are getting the information you need to upkeep their client files up to date, as well as gathering the context for what kinds of information you will need to share with them, how to help them overcome some of those barriers to success. Information sharing, pretty obvious, communicating knowledge and resources and skills and tools. And you also want to use this to check and to verify that they understand and are able to answer the questions that they are facing. So you want to make sure that based on the information that you've shared with them, they can understand and repeat back or process or make progress and take action based on the information that you share, right? Because this is not an MBA class, this is somebody's real business. And so you don't just want them to hypothetically and conceptually understand the business models. You want them to be able to select an appropriate business model for their business and then start executing on that business model. And finally, decision making. Decision making is about helping entrepreneurs compile preferences. Uh, and there's a bunch of books out there on decision making that I would recommend. But compiling preferences to come up with an entire decision, creating a framework for analysis, and assist in the structuring of priorities. Right, and I'll walk through kind of an example of how to go about doing this in a way that is intuitive for and with your clients. So, when we talk about driving value before delivering value, what I'm talking about is demonstrating your boundaries. What do you, as an SBDC advisor, need from your clients in order to actually deliver the value that they are seeking, right? So this is communicating those needs and gaining buy-in from your clients. So specifically, there are three things that you can do to communicate those boundaries and gain buy-in. The first is around communicating the value of the services. What would an open or a fair market value for your time be in your area? For me in Alabama, my going rates are between $125 and $250 an hour, depending on what I'm being asked to do. The set expectations on cadence. So how often do you need them to connect with you to let you know how they're doing, right? And this can be a conversation like, okay, sounds like you've got a lot on your plate over the next couple of weeks. Let's touch base in 6 weeks' time. That way I can answer any questions about what you've accomplished or where you're getting stuck, and you can let me know what you've done to move forward in your business. I'm going to schedule an email to go out to you in 6 weeks' time. Please use that as an opportunity to either schedule a meeting or respond back to that email so that we can stay in a cadence of productivity, right? So set expectations, and that can be through scheduled emails. It can be through workflows through Calendly or another calendar app. It can be that you just mark on your calendar to follow up with them. As much of the responsibility as possible, if you can schedule or automate that process or shift it directly to the client, that's going to really accelerate your ability to work, because it's going to cut down on that overhead time. So having templates, using scheduling software, those are all really good ways to not just set those expectations for cadence, but then actually execute on that cadence, right? That's that integrity piece and reliability pieces, doing what you say you're going to do. And then finally, setting expectations on the relationship. What do they need from you? How often do they expect to hear from you? Communicating directly that you're not running their business for them. You're not writing or creating marketing content. You're not going out there and co-signing a loan with them, right? It's their responsibility to actually run the business and to bring that information about what works and what doesn't to you. Another one of their responsibilities as a client of yours is to let you know when they're having trouble with some of the information or decisions, or they don't feel like they understand the connection between the priorities that you've set for a particular week or month goal and the actual and their big overall goals, right? To build generational wealth or pass a business onto their kids, or to, be an international voice in their particular space. All of those things, take steps to lead up to them. It's one decision at a time that will help them get there. And so if they don't understand the link or don't think it's a good idea, then they may just not act on it. And so one of their responsibilities is to communicate their expectations about the relationship with you as well. Driving value. So let's take a look at some of the assumptions that go into a relationship with SBDC, right? So when clients register for a no cost or low cost business advising service, especially for business owners, one of the assumptions is that they have already tried to do it on their own. This is a pretty safe assumption. All of these are very safe assumptions, right? So they've already tried to do it on their own, and they've either gotten stuck, lost, or downright failed. So by the time they're reaching out, you can expect that they've been trying and failing for a minimum of 3 to 4, maybe even 6 weeks. Some folks that I worked with had been trying to do it on their own and were failing for 6 months plus before they actually reached out. Now, circumstantially, like if it's a pandemic or, there's a new big government initiative, they may not try and fail on their own. But overall, in terms of getting a business started and running and financing that business, doing government contracting, international trade, all of those things are generally all of those areas that SBDCs support. The entrepreneurs generally will try on their own before they actually reach out. So by the time they do, they're desperate for your help, right? So this comes down to that building trust, right? You don't have to be from the small town that they're from. You don't have to know the same people that they know. That's not what's delivering and driving the trust and value in your relationship. Frankly, it doesn't matter if you've gone to the same high school or if you're from the same state or even country. If you can build that trust through the braving inventory and give them what they need to know to move forward with their business, no amount of small talk is going to replace that level of trust in the business owner. So if you can show and describe a relationship where you're bringing value and then actually deliver on that value in terms of their business progress, that's going to build more trust more consistently than any other kind of small talking or relationship building tools that are out there. They are behind on their own schedule. So they've tried, right? They have set this expectation. They probably have an expectation of success, what success looks and feels like in their own head, and they think they're behind schedule. They are risking failure, right? And a lot of times it feels personal to them. And so and all of us business owners will know this from running our own businesses, but it is hard not to associate your self-worth with the worth of your business. It feels great to be on a winning team. It feels not great when your business is not doing well, right? And so they're risking failure not just financially and economically with their business, but they're also risking perceiving themselves as a failure. And the final assumption is that you may be the only one supporting them in their business right now. They may have everybody else in their social network telling them, just get a job, stay in your lane. I didn't think of you as a business owner. Don't you think that's a little risky? All of those thousand little cuts, and some of them deeper than others, put them on their heels. And so the combination of these four assumptions that they've tried and have failed, they are behind their own schedule. They're risking economic and emotional, like social failure and potentially shame because of it. All of those really put a lot of pressure on the business owner. And so even if you have nothing personally in common with the business owner, if you can tell them that they might have a good idea, right? Or if they don't, and why not, and how they can use the skills they've learned to pivot, that's another way of showing support and success, right? Delivering on the value, that's super important in building trust. So myself, I'm from New Jersey originally, operating in Alabama, right? Like I don't have the same, I had to practice saying roll tide when I first moved to Alabama, because my college team was the Terrapins. So having, even if you have very little in common personally, you can still develop a highly trusting, highly productive relationship with your clients. And that's what makes a 30-minute meeting expectation. That's what turns the 30 minutes into 15 minutes, because the trust is not in that small talk that eats up a bunch of the time. It's in actually delivering value so that that business owner can get back to their business and actually start executing and implementing. So communicating buy-in communicating and gaining buy-in, you need to be specific about what you need from clients upfront. Specifically talk about the survey responses. Specifically talk about success stories and frame them shamelessly as SBDC success stories. Yes, they are stories about the success of clients, but it's a marketing tool for small business development centers. It is not a marketing tool for the small business. One of the side effects is that small businesses can use it as a marketing tool, and they can create backlinks to their website. And so, improving their SEO and things like that. But it is a tool to help spread the word about the good work that SBDCs do. So often in my career with the SBDC, people would come to me and say, I've been trying to do this on my own for 2 years and I had no idea you guys existed. Why don't you do more marketing? Well, the truth of the matter is most SBDCs just don't have a huge marketing budget, if any at all, right? And so the success stories through the SBA are one of the best ways that we can continue to get the word out. They're little case studies about how SBDC does good work in the community. They're good for stakeholder engagement. So many reasons they're good, but they are not stories about the success of a client. They're stories about how we as advisors have successfully worked to improve the conditions of businesses in our area. Last thing you'll need, or not the last thing, but one of the very obvious things that you need to explicitly communicate is the verification of their new business and capital, right? When they get that loan, it's not the lender that needs to come to you and tell them, it's them. When they form that new business, right? And there's those SBA elements to, when it's considered a new business. But verification, that's one of the times that they need to come to you, right? And so having that regular cadence of communication will help them keep you front of mind. And then explain the structure of your meetings. And so I will go into we'll save that one for another conversation, or you're more than welcome to schedule a free consultation with me and I'll tell you about kind of the ideal structure of meetings for this, but it aligns very closely with the structure of this presentation. You want to drive the value, you want to then deliver the value, and then keep up that cadence. So let's talk about delivering value. Delivering value is pretty basic. You want accountability plus information plus decisions to come out of that. So those three pieces. So understanding the context of where they are, providing information, and assisting in decision making. So let's look at those three components. So accountability. You want to understand the context. So what is the context that you need to understand? It may be where they went to high school, but unless they're selling to their high school, probably not, right? So understanding the context, where are they now? Where do they want to go? What's stopping them from getting there? What have they already tried? So once you frame your meeting, right? So in my 15-minute meetings, I spend the first 5 to 7 minutes talking about the value and what I need back from the client, and then asking them to verbally agree to that. Then I say, look, you're probably thinking of a 15-minute call. I've just spoken for 7 minutes of that. How are you possibly going to get value out of this? I'm going to stop talking now. I start taking notes and I tell them I'm going to take notes. I want you to brain dump. I want you to just tell me, what questions do you have? And oftentimes those questions will be indicative of where they are now, where they're trying to go, what's stopping them from getting there, and what they've already tried. For example, if they're like, hey, we're already registered with the Secretary of State, but I don't know what other business licenses I need. Or I registered as a sole proprietorship, but then I later changed to an LLC and I don't know what to do with my EIN. Do I need a new one? Do I have to pay for it? That tells you what they've already tried, right? So you can get a lot of that by just active listening and telling them, what else, what else, what else. Key to keep people on track for this context piece is you want to make sure that you keep asking what else, not anything else. Anything else, the term, like the phrase what else, will keep people talking. The phrase anything else will encourage them to ask their last question and then stop. And I don't know why this works, but it does without fail. So when you want someone to keep telling you more information, ask you more questions, what else will trigger them to continue asking questions? Anything else, on the other hand, will usually get an answer of no. If not, they'll have one more question, and then that will be a good transition for you to provide information. So now that you have the list of questions, you can provide information and steps to fill in the gaps and overcome those barriers that they have just discussed. For example, where to obtain a business license or documents needed to apply for a loan, that kind of information. You may run out of time to explicitly go through all of their questions. So what I recommend is having templates that you can lean back on and say, hey, you know what? We've got 2 minutes left. I'm only going to be able to answer this question. But what I'll do is I'll follow up and I'll answer all of your questions by emails. Each of the emails will have a different subject line and will be related to a different question. And then make sure to schedule another meeting with me so we can continue going through this information. So provide that knowledge or provide that information. And then finally, assist in decision making. How do they prioritize? Well, prioritization is a skill. It's a skill that you are helping them create in these short form meetings. And the way you're doing that is twofold. One, you're making them focus on the very most important things and the biggest questions that they have, because time is an absolutely finite resource, right? And you're giving them back a lot of time by keeping your meetings pretty short. Two, a lot of people try and accomplish way too much in a particular week, right? And so the priorities that you're going to ask them to set for that next week or month, however, whatever time frame you have to meet with them, you're going to ask them to focus on one or two goals per week or per month. Basically, if it can't fit on a sticky note, it's not going to get done. And the research from the 4 disciplines of execution indicates that if you have more than like 4 different goals, right, you're less likely to get any of them done. So ask them to focus on 1 to 2 things that they wouldn't otherwise be focusing on. So put some intentional effort behind that. Ask them to visualize their calendar and think about where they're going to squeeze that in, right? Or what's going to come off of their to-do list in favor of making progress in these 2 areas, and then get a verbal commitment that they will work on those items. I will tell you, this takes business owners practice, right? And if you can develop a weekly cadence, you're much more likely to see that progress and success. So let's talk about goal sizing, right? Because we've talked about weekly, we've talked about monthly. These are different goal sizing. You have to think about different goals. Uh, if they're all gonna fit on a sticky note, right? Because you want that to hang right next to their computer or right, wherever is very obvious so that they can stay attuned to that. Establishing goals is a superpower, and it's one of the primary skill sets of an SBDC advisor. So you want to make sure that your goals are smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So if they are supposed to get it done in a week, make sure that they know that they're responsible for getting it done in a week. Ask them when they think they can get it done by. So you can facilitate them setting their own time boundedness. The second is target. Make sure that you are helping them focus in on 1 to 2 goals per week. Now, that doesn't mean those are the only 2 things that they get done that week, right? I'm sure they have a to-do list that goes out the back door. But these are 1 to 2 areas that they would not normally be focusing effort on, that they're going to focus a little bit of extra intention on over the course of the week so that they can actually accomplish and make progress towards their big goal, right? This is taking them out of working in their business and helping them work on the business, right? So these can be making progress on the business plan, developing a business model canvas, reaching out to a strategic partner to make arrangements for an alliance or joint venture, those kinds of things. But you want to make sure that they are targeting 1 to 2 goals and no more than that, right? If you're setting goals for a 1 week period of time, these are goals that they should be spending no more than really 60 minutes on in a week. I will tell you from personal experience, I mean, personal professional experience, they're not going to have more time than that, right? But setting aside, asking them to set aside and think about where they can schedule in 30 to 60 minutes over the course of a week really will help them dedicate more time to working on their business over the course of your relationship with them as an SBDC client. And the third goal sizing tip is to make sure that the goals are connected very, very closely to the results that you're helping the client drive towards. Be explicit about the results that you expect from it. Are you testing out a new product in the market with some influential customers? Do you believe that creating swag is going to help you generate more income? What is it specifically that the goal is going to, how is that goal connected to the results? So the results driven piece is you and the client believe that there's a high likelihood that if they accomplish these 1 to 2 goals, it will help them overall move closer to one of their big goals, right? So that there's a clear line of connection, even if it's just a hypothesis that you're testing, right? Because that's all things that's all it is that you can try for is we think that X is going to move us closer to Y. X being the hypothesis, and it may not, right? And if it doesn't, then you cross that tactic off the list and you move on to the next tactic, or you tweak it so that you can move forward. So, how do we put all of this together? So, first, you want to explain who you are and tell them what you need. Then you gain verbal buy in by getting them to verbally commit to sending you the validation and the survey responses when those come up. Explain to them that there's only a couple per year maximum, but you do need that information, and that's how SBDC continues to provide no and low cost business advising services at such a high quality standard. That number 4 is where you stop talking. Understand the context and barriers that they are facing. This is where they dump all of their situation on you, and you sit there quietly taking notes and asking what else. Once you have that list, then you go ahead and provide relevant information, either by telling them about it, but then even if you tell them about it over the phone or in an in-person meeting, you also want to follow up with those emails, explicitly documenting the steps to accomplish those. The more you can put items into a checklist, the more likely folks will be to actually go step by step or say, hey, Catherine, I really got stuck on step 6. I don't know whether I'm supposed to put down that I'm a serious professional or nonprofit LLC when I fill in my Secretary of State paperwork. And you can say, oh, okay, you'll actually see see here that this is not required if you're not a professional series or nonprofit LLC. And as a single member LLC, you're probably not one of these, but here's where you can get legal advice to actually look at this, right? So you can get that information back from them. So you provide that information, assist in decision making. Okay, you've got these 20 questions, right? I'm going to give you answers to all of them, but what are you going to focus on first that's going to help you move towards your big goal of X, Y, or Z? And then you want to make sure to follow up with emails recapping who you are and what you need, right? And that can be if you're happy with our advising services, please post a public facing Google review on our Google My Business page and then link that in, right? That is a good ask because that also helps promote you as a small business development center. You also want to provide a recap of what they need and the resources. I recommend sending them the notes that you take that you put right into Neosera or I always forget what the other CRM is. I literally just copy and paste it. And my first ask of them is, hey, read over these notes. If I missed something or if we didn't get to something, please let me know and I'll make that correction in the notes. And that way it's their responsibility to uh, keep the information that's coming to you accurate, right? Because if you don't have accurate information, how are you supposed to provide accurate resources to them? So that's kind of putting it all together. I know it seems like a lot, but believe me, if you start by thinking about this in a 30-minute and then shrinking it down to a 15-minute time frame, you really can develop a solid cadence with your clients to really create some pretty big impact in a very short amount of time, just because you've built that relationship on trust. That's a professional trusting relationship. Using that braving inventory and then talking specifically about boundaries, what you need, being reliable, showing up, having integrity, having accountability, and all of those other pieces. So explaining who you are and what you need is not an intuitive way to start a meeting with an SBDC client, but believe me, putting that what you need in the forefront to be successful and be committed to the relationship that they need you for really will change the dynamic so that when they get when they get their business licenses and make their first sale or hire their first independent contractor or employee, they do reach out to you proactively and you're not chasing down that paperwork. So that is how you put it all together. This is kind of a teaser amount of information on a new service that we are developing, and that is a 3-day intensive new advisor onboarding process. We can do it on site or online, and it's ideal for new advisors, new center directors, interns, or just accelerating the work of current and existing advisors. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, you will be taken to my calendar where you can schedule, guess how long, a 15-minute meeting with me. We could talk more about your center or your specific advisor needs to really accelerate the process of meeting those client demands. Now, I do want to say just because you're doing 15-minute meetings with clients does not mean that you're necessarily doing 15-minute meetings back to back. Your whole day is not going to be 15-minute meetings. This gives you more time to make sure that you are creating those necessary trainings to fill the top of funnel. It means that you have more time for professional development and creating those templates for yourself and your team so that you can automate a significant amount of this work. So just because you're doing 15-minute meetings doesn't mean that that's all you're doing in your day, nor does it mean that you're 15 minutes back to back, unless another pandemic hits, and then that may be the case. But we'll knock on wood and stay vaccinated and stay safe about that. So that is the 3-day intensive new advisor onboarding. The goal is to make sure that new advisors basically are ready to start interacting with clients in a highly productive way within their first week of being on the job. So it's a way to kind of accelerate the learning process so that new advisors, new center directors, or interns really are hitting the ground running, both with the knowledge that they need in terms of best practices around, so that the food businesses that they're interacting with, their guidepost for COGS is 30%, right? And they're not taking a look at a balance sheet or a cash flow and profit and loss statement and going, "Oh, yeah, 70% of your revenue is going to COGS," you sound like you're doing fine, right? Making sure that we know those industry specific aspects, and then also being able to keep that cadence, build that trust, and delivers results both to your center as well as to the clients that you're serving. Thank you so much. My name is Catherine Zobri. I'm the CEO and founder of the Founders Playground LLC. I hope to speak with you soon. Thanks, everybody.